My name is Daniel. This happened while I was driving through Nevada on Interstate 80. I was moving from Utah to California for a new construction job. The desert stretched endlessly on both sides of the road. Number houses, no lights, no towns for miles. It was close to 2:30 in the morning. My eyes were getting heavy. My vision kept blurring. So I pulled into a small highway rest area, the kind with 2 vending machines, a small bathroom building, and 6 empty parking spots under weak yellow lights. There were no other cars, not a single engine sound, not even wind moving through the desert. When I stepped out of my truck, the air felt wrong. Unusually cold for the desert, dry but sharp, like it was slicing into my lungs every time I breathed in. I parked near the bathroom building, turned off the engine, and just sat there for a moment, listening carefully, trying to hear something normal. No wind, no insects, no distant trucks, just a heavy silence pressing against my ears. When I looked at the bathroom, I noticed the lights were on, but the main door was slightly open, moving slowly back and forth, not from wind, just moving on its own like something had brushed past it. I walked closer, my boots scraping against the concrete, and that was when I saw dark streaks near the entrance. Thick lines on the ground, not fully visible under the yellow light, but wet enough to reflect. When I stepped inside, the smell hit me instantly. Metallic and sour, thick in the air. It made my throat tighten. The sink was running. Water overflowing onto the floor, spreading across the tiles. One of the stall doors was ripped off its hinges and lying flat. Metal twisted, screws torn out of the wall. I called out asking if anyone needed help. My voice echoed unnaturally loud, bouncing off the walls and coming back to me in a way that did not feel right. No answer came back. I walked toward the last stall. It was the only one still closed, the only one untouched through the gap at the bottom. I saw 2 bare feet. They were facing the wrong direction. The heels toward the toilet, the toes toward the stall door. My chest tightened. My hands went cold. The skin looked stretched and pale, almost gray. The toes were too long, too thin, like fingers. Then the stall door slowly bent outward, wood cracking softly at first, then louder. Metal hinges snapping one by one. The door fell forward onto the floor. The body inside was folded backward over the toilet tank. The spine arched in a way no human spine should ever bend. Arms twisted behind its head, shoulders dislocated. Its face was staring directly at me, its jaw hanging open so wide it looked detached, skin stretched to the limit, eyes rolled completely white. Then it moved. Its spine snapped forward with a wet cracking sound, vertebrae shifting under skin, and the body dropped to the floor on all fours. Its limbs were longer than normal, elbows bending backward, knees popping out of place, bones visibly pushing against its skin. It crawled toward me with violent jerks, nails scraping hard across the tile, leaving deep marks. I stumbled back, my boots slipping on the water from the sink. My heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. It lunged at me and grabbed my jacket. Its fingers dug into my shoulder. I felt my skin tear instantly, hot blood soaking through my shirt. The pain was sharp and blinding. I kicked it in the face as hard as I could. I felt teeth break under my boot, felt bone shift. It screamed, not like a human, but like metal being dragged across concrete. A high grinding shriek that vibrated through my skull. I ran outside toward my truck, my shoulder burning, blood dripping down my arm. The parking lot lights began flickering violently, flashing on and off, casting broken shadows across the ground. From inside the bathroom, I heard more movement, more scraping, more limbs dragging across tile, more than one creature shifting in the dark. The bathroom windows shattered outward, glass exploding into the parking lot. 3 more figures crawled out through the broken frames. landing unnaturally on the concrete, their joints twisting as they stood upright, bones snapping and shifting under their skin, like they were rearranging themselves. I reached my truck, jumped inside, slammed the door shut, locked it instantly, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the keys. They surrounded my vehicle, moving too fast, circling it. One climbed onto the hood, its fingers punching into the metal like it was soft clay, leaving deep dents. Another pressed its face against the driver's side window, its jaw slowly unhinging wider and wider, stretching until the skin around its mouth tore open. Blood smearing across the glass, I started the engine, my breath shaking, my vision blurring. The one on the hood slammed its head into the windshield. The glass cracking instantly in long, sharp lines, I slammed the gas pedal. The truck jerked forward violently, throwing two of them under the tires. I felt the wheels roll over something thick, something that did not crush normally, something that resisted. In the rearview mirror, I saw them standing back up, bones snapping back into place, limbs straightening unnaturally. I sped onto the highway, my truck shaking, windshield cracked, blood dripping from my shoulder onto the seat. For a moment, I thought I escaped. I thought I left them behind. Then I noticed the passenger side door handles slowly moving, up and down, slowly. Deliberately, my heart nearly stopped. I turned my head to the right. A face was pressed against the outside of my passenger window. I was going 70 miles per hour. The wind screaming around the truck, the desert blurring past. That thing was somehow keeping pace, its legs moving in rapid, unnatural blurs, its body leaning forward like an animal chasing prey. Its hand punched through the passenger window, glass exploding inward across my chest and face, its fingers wrapped around my arm. Squeezing hard, I felt my skin tear open instantly. I felt tendons in my forearms snap like tight wires breaking. I screamed and swerved, the steering wheel jerking violently in my hands. The truck spun across the highway, tires screeching, metal screaming. Then it flipped into the desert ditch, rolling, crushing, slamming into rock and sand. I felt my spine bend. I felt something inside my back snap. I felt my jaw shift out of place. When the truck finally stopped moving, I was hanging sideways, blood filling my mouth, my vision fading. And then I felt hands on me again, pulling me out through the broken side, dragging me across gravel, twisting my arms behind my head, bending my spine backward slowly, carefully. I could hear my own bones cracking, one by one. I could feel my jaw being forced open wider and wider until it dislocated. By the time they found the wreck the next afternoon, the truck was crushed, glass everywhere, blood covering the inside. The passenger door was completely missing. My body was found 50 yards away, my spine bent backward over a desert rock, my arms twisted behind my skull, my jaw dislocated, my eyes completely white. They inspected the rest area bathroom. There was no damage, no broken stalls, no blood. The sink was dry. But deep claw marks were found carved into the metal inside my truck, from the inside of the passenger door, and every year since then. Drivers on that same stretch of Interstate 80 report something running beside their vehicles after 2:30 in the morning, matching their speed, staying just outside the window, waiting patiently for the door to unlock. My name is Daniel. I worked the night shift at a small highway gas station in a quiet Midwest town. My shift started at 11 at night and ended at 7 in the morning. Most nights the place was nearly empty. Only the occasional truck driver stopping for fuel, coffee, or cigarettes. The station sat right off a long stretch of highway, surrounded by flat land, a few broken fences, and darkness that felt heavier after midnight. Inside the store, The only constant sounds were the freezer compressor kicking on and off, and the faint electric buzz from the fluorescent ceiling lights. That night was quieter than usual. No cars since 1 in the morning, no headlights passing on the road. Nothing but empty pumps under pale white lights. At 2:17 in the morning, the exterior motion sensor lights suddenly switched on. I noticed it immediately on the security monitor. The light flooded the front entrance in white, but there was no car pulling in, no engine sound, no tire noise on gravel. On the monitor, I saw someone standing directly in front of the glass door. A tall, dark figure, completely still. Not shifting weight, not looking around, just standing there. At first, I assumed it was a truck driver who parked out of camera range. I stood up from behind the counter and walked toward the door to unlock it. But when I looked through the real glass door into the parking lot, there was no one there. The concrete outside was empty. The pumps were empty. The road was empty. My chest tightened immediately. I slowly looked back at the monitor. The figure was still there, standing inches from the door, facing inward toward me. But in real life, there was nothing. I felt a wave of cold move through my body. I quickly locked the door again and stepped back. When I looked at the monitor, the figure had moved closer. Its face was near the glass, but it was not clear. Not blurred like bad focus, more like the image refused to render properly. A dark distortion where facial features should have been. Around 3 in the morning, I started noticing the temperature dropping. The thermostat on the wall read 72 degrees, but the air felt freezing. I could see my own breath when I exhaled. Thin white vapor in front of my face. The hum of the lights sounded louder. The freezer compressors stopped completely. Then I heard knocking from the bathroom hallway. 3 slow knocks, then silence. I knew for a fact no one had entered the store since 1 in the morning. I checked the register log myself. No sales, no door chime, nothing. The knocking came again, 3 times, slow, deliberate. I grabbed a flashlight from under the counter and walked toward the bathroom. My footsteps sounded too loud against the tile. When I pushed the bathroom door open, it was empty, but the mirror was fogged, covered in condensation, and written across it with a finger were the words, "You locked me out." My hands started shaking. I had not written that. No one had entered. The door had been locked. I stepped backward slowly, and then I heard the faint chime of the front door sensor, the sound it makes when someone enters. I ran back toward the counter. The front door was still locked, still closed, but on the security monitor, the figure was no longer outside. It was inside the store, standing directly in front of the counter, right where I was supposed to be. I looked at the real floor in front of me. There was nothing there. The monitor showed it standing less than 3 feet away, facing the camera facing me. Then all the lights flickered once, twice, and shut off completely. The entire store dropped into darkness. For 5 full seconds there was nothing. No sound, no light, no hum, just black. Then the emergency backup light turned on, dim red glow spreading across the store. In that red light, I saw something on the floor, wet footprints leading from the front door. Toward the counter, large, bare, water pooling inside each print. As if someone had walked in soaking wet, I followed the footprints with my eyes. They stopped directly in front of me, right at the edge of the counter. The air in front of me felt heavier, thicker, like someone was standing inches away, breathing slowly. I could hear it, a slow inhale, a slower exhale right in front of my face. But I could not see anyone. The monitor behind me flickered back on. I turned my head slowly. On the screen I saw myself, standing behind the counter, but in the footage, the dark figure was leaning over the counter, its head tilted sideways, its face inches from mine, its arm reaching across toward my chest. In real life, I felt pressure. cold fingers pressing lightly against my shirt, sliding upward toward my throat. I could not move. I could not scream. The pressure tightened, slowly, deliberately, as if testing how much force I could take. Then the lights snapped fully back on. The store returned to normal brightness. The footprints were gone. The air felt warmer. The monitor showed an empty store. At 6:58 in the morning, the morning shift employee unlocked the front door. He found me sitting under the counter, my back pressed against the cabinet. My eyes open, but I could not stop shaking. I kept repeating the same sentence over and over. The door has to stay locked. The door has to stay locked. I do not remember leaving the counter. I do not remember sitting down. I only remember the feeling of something standing inches from me, waiting for the door to open. To this day, that gas station still operates. The motion sensor light outside still turns on randomly after 2 in the morning. No cars ever pull in. No customers ever appear. But sometimes, on the security footage, for a single frame, there is someone standing at the door, completely still, waiting to be let in. My name is Emily. I was living alone in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Texas, while my husband was deployed overseas. Our house sat on a calm street with trimmed lawns, identical mailboxes, a wide concrete driveway in front, and 2 security cameras mounted under the roof edges. Every night before going to bed, I had a routine. I would sit on the couch in the living room, open the security app on my phone, and scroll through the camera feeds. Most nights it was nothing unusual, maybe a raccoon digging near the trash, maybe a stray cat walking across the yard, sometimes just moving tree shadows. One night everything changed. At exactly 1:43 in the morning, I got a motion alert from the front driveway camera. I remember clearly because I was still awake, sitting in the living room watching Netflix, the television light flickering softly across the walls. When I opened the camera feed, I saw a person standing in the middle of my driveway. He was wearing a dark hoodie. His head was tilted down. His arms were hanging loosely at his sides. He was completely still. My heart started beating harder instantly. I muted the television and listened carefully. There was no doorbell, no knocking, no footsteps, no sound of gravel moving outside. I slowly stood up and walked toward the front window, my hands shaking slightly. When I looked outside, the driveway was completely empty. Nothing, no one. I looked back at my phone. The figure was still there on the screen. Then slowly, unnaturally slowly, the figure lifted its head toward the camera. But the face was blurred, not like normal camera blur. It was like the lens refused to focus on it. The body was clear. The hoodie was clear. But the face looked smeared, distorted. I felt cold all over. Before calling the police, I refreshed the camera feed. The image changed. Now the same figure was standing at my back door, just inches away from the glass. My breathing became shallow. I ran to the back hallway and checked the lock. It was perfectly secured, deadbolt locked, handle locked, no movement, no shadow outside the glass. My phone started vibrating repeatedly. Motion detected backyard. Motion detected front porch. Motion detected garage. Alert after alert after alert. But inside the house, everything was silent, too silent. Around 2 in the morning, I started hearing soft sounds inside the house. Not loud, not crashing, just faint shifting sounds. Like someone walking slowly across carpet. Bare feet dragging lightly, I froze in the hallway, listening. The sound came from upstairs, from the bedroom. My throat felt tight. I had not gone upstairs since sitting down to watch television. I stared at the staircase. And then I saw the bedroom door at the top slowly begin to open. There was no wind. All windows were closed. The door opened inch by inch. The sound of the hinge stretching echoed down the hallway. I could not move. I could not breathe properly. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Motion detected master bedroom. I forced myself to look at the live camera feed. The bedroom camera showed the room empty. The bed perfectly made, the door fully closed. But in real life upstairs, the door was open, wide. I felt like my mind was breaking. I locked myself in the downstairs bathroom until morning, sitting on the floor with my back against the door, holding my phone tightly, watching the alerts continue to appear. At sunrise, the notifications stopped. Everything went quiet again. The next day, I checked the recorded footage. From 1:43 in the morning until after 3, there was nothing. No video, just black screen, no corrupted file warning, just absence. But there was one saved image, a single still frame automatically captured by the system. When I opened it, my hands started shaking uncontrollably. The image was from inside my bedroom. I was asleep in the bed, the blankets pulled up to my shoulders. The timestamp said 2:17 in the morning. Standing beside my bed was the same hooded figure, its head tilted downward, its face still blurred. But this time it was close enough that I could see the outline of its mouth. It was too wide, too stretched, and it was looking directly at me, not at the camera, at me. I do not remember going upstairs. I do not remember sleeping. I do not remember anyone entering my house. But the image was clear. It was inside. After that night, I moved out immediately. I left most of my furniture behind. I could not stay there another night. We sold the house within 2 months. But the security system was never fully deactivated. The account still existed. Sometimes I still receive random motion alerts from that address. Even though I no longer live there, the new owners changed the cameras, changed the locks, changed the entire system. But my old account was never removed from the cloud backup. Every few months, at exactly 1:43 in the morning, I get a notification. Motion detected master bedroom. There is never any video attached, just a still image. A dark bedroom. Someone standing beside the bed, head tilted down, waiting. And every time I zoom into the image, the face remains blurred, like the camera still refuses to let me see it. My name is Marcus Hoyle. I live in Ohio, and this happened 3 months ago when I rented a storage unit on the edge of town. I was going through a divorce, downsizing into a smaller apartment, trying to pack away pieces of a life that no longer fit anywhere. The storage facility was located behind an old warehouse district, long cracked roads, broken streetlights, rows of identical metal doors stretching into darkness, gravel covering the ground, and one small office near the front gate where the manager worked during the day. I chose Unit 47, middle row, nothing special about it. Just another metal box with a roll-up door and concrete floor. It felt temporary, emotionless, like it was designed to hold things people did not want to look at anymore. The first evening I moved my furniture and boxes inside. Everything felt normal. The air smelled like dust, old oil, and rusted steel. The thin metal walls popped occasionally as the temperature dropped with the setting sun. Around 9 p.m., the manager locked the main gate and waved before driving off. I told him I would only be a few more minutes organizing. That was when I heard the first sound, a slow dragging noise. It came from the unit directly next to mine. It sounded heavy, like a soaked mattress being pulled across bare concrete. Slow, deliberate, stopping and starting. I assumed someone else had late access, maybe moving things around after hours. I stepped outside my unit to check. The entire row was empty. No cars, no people, no open doors. Just silent metal rectangles under weak yellow lights. I went back into my unit and pulled the roll-up door halfway down, leaving a gap for air. A few minutes passed. Then the dragging sound returned, closer this time, directly against the shared wall between Unit 47 and 48. The vibration traveled through the metal into my palms. Then 3 slow knocks, not random shifting, not settling. 3 evenly spaced knocks. Intentional. I froze, staring at the wall. The metal dented inward slightly with each knock, like something on the other side was testing it. I stepped backward slowly. The wall bulged again, harder. The screws along the vertical seam began popping out one by one. Small metallic snaps echoing too loudly in the enclosed space. I grabbed my phone and walked outside to look at the neighboring unit number. Unit 48. I stared at the lock. It was thick with rust. A solid layer of dust covered the latch and handle. The ground in front of it was undisturbed. No footprints, no tire marks, no sign of recent activity. It looked like it had not been opened in years. Behind me, I heard metal tearing. A long, violent ripping sound. I turned around slowly. The shared wall between 47 and 48 split open from the inside. Metal bent outward, screws shooting across the floor. A jagged hole widened, large enough for a body. Something pushed through. First I saw fingers long swollen, skin stretched too tight and glossy, like it had been submerged in water for days. The fingernails were cracked and dark. They gripped the torn metal edge and pulled. A shoulder forced through next. I heard a wet crack as the joint dislocated to fit. Then the head emerged. Its jaw hung low, swinging unnaturally. Teeth grinding against each other, as if they did not align properly. Its eyes were open, milky white, unfocused. Its torso followed, too long for normal proportions. Ribs clearly visible beneath thin, pale skin. It collapsed onto my concrete floor in a heap, then slowly began straightening itself. Bones snapping loudly as they shifted back into place. Arms twisting, spine popping, neck jerking sideways until it aligned. It stood upright, but tilted slightly, as if balance was optional. I could not move. It turned its head toward me in one sharp motion. When it looked at me, I felt pressure inside my ears. Like descending underwater too quickly, my vision pulsed, then it rushed forward. Not running, sliding, its feet barely lifting. Gliding across the concrete, I tried to dodge, but it grabbed my forearm. Its grip was crushing. I felt my wrist bones grinding together. Sharp pain shooting up my arm, I screamed and swung a metal folding chair at its back. The chair bent around its body, metal warping. It did not react. Instead, it leaned closer to my face. Its mouth opened wider. The skin at the corners tore. I could see deep into its throat. No tongue, no movement, just darkness stretching down. It bit into my shoulder. Its teeth pierced through muscle and locked in place. It did not pull away. It shook its head violently. I felt flesh tearing from bone, hot blood pouring down my chest and soaking my shirt. I shoved my thumb into its eye. The eye collapsed inward like overripe fruit. Thick black fluid spilled down its cheek. It released me and stumbled backward, its head twitching, jaw snapping shut and open repeatedly. I ran toward the exit, but the roll-up door was lowering. Slowly, no motor sound, no chain movement. Just descending on its own, I dove under the gap. The metal edge scraped across my back. Cutting through skin, I landed hard on the gravel outside. The entire row of storage units began vibrating, every metal door rattling violently at the same time. From inside multiple units, I heard dragging, scratching, heavy bodies slamming against walls. The gate at the front remained locked. Tall, immovable. I ran toward it anyway, gravel crunching under my boots. Halfway there, I heard something behind me. Gravel shifting, multiple sets of movement. I turned. Unit doors were opening one by one, not rolling upward, peeling outward, metal, bending like thin paper. From each dark interior something stepped out. Same elongated torso, same twisted spine, same milky white eyes, at least 10, maybe more. They moved toward me without hurry, calm, certain. Like they understood I had nowhere left to go. One suddenly dropped to all fours, its joints bending in the wrong directions. It sprinted toward me with terrifying speed. It slammed into my body before I could react. I hit the gravel hard, air forced from my lungs. My vision flashing white, it climbed on top of me, its fingers pressing into my stomach, nails sliding under my skin. I felt them dig in, pull upward, warmth spilling across my sides. I tried to scream, but blood filled my mouth. Another grabbed my leg and twisted. My knee bent sideways with a sharp tearing sensation. Pain exploded through me. Another pressed its palm against my chest. Slow, steady pressure. I felt ribs cracking one by one beneath its grip. They were not rushing. They were methodical, pulling pieces of me apart carefully, as if studying how a human body separated. I remember looking up at the sky. No stars visible, just black emptiness. One of them leaned down close to my face. Its broken jaw brushed my cheek. Its breath slid into my mouth. Cold, rotten, wet more hands gripped my arms. My neck, my sides. I felt skin tearing, muscles separating, bones shifting. The pain became distant, muted, like my body was no longer fully mine. The last thing I remember was hearing 3 slow knocks, close to my ear. Then everything went dark. According to police reports, the security cameras at the facility glitched that night. Static from 8:52 p.m. until 3:17 a.m. When footage returned, my car was still parked in front of Unit 47. The main gate was still locked. Unit 47 was intact. No hole in the wall. No torn metal, no damage. But there was blood on the gravel, a large amount, and small pieces of skin that matched my DNA. They never found the rest of me. Now tenants sometimes complain about sounds coming from inside their storage units after closing time. Dragging, scratching, then 3 slow knocks, and sometimes, if they stand very still, they say the metal wall bends inward slightly, as if something on the other side is asking to be let out. My name is Ryan Carter. I live in Florida, and this happened 3 months ago on a private stretch of beach about 20 minutes away from town, a place with no lifeguards, no lights, no night patrol, just sand, wind, and endless black water. I went there after midnight because I could not sleep. My head was heavy with stress, and the sound of waves usually helped me breathe slower. The parking lot was empty when I arrived. Only my car sitting under a weak flickering lamp near the entrance. The sky had no moon, no visible stars, the ocean and the horizon blending together into one dark mass. It felt like the world ended a few feet past the shoreline. I walked down toward the water barefoot, holding my shoes in one hand and my phone in the other. The sand felt cool and slightly damp, each step sinking softly, leaving clear prints behind me. At first everything seemed normal. Waves rolling in, foam sliding over my toes, then pulling back, but after a few minutes I realized something was wrong. The waves were silent. They were moving, rising and falling. But there was no crashing sound, no steady white noise, just thick motion, like heavy liquid folding over itself. My chest tightened slowly, my ears straining to hear something natural, something familiar. But there was only silence and the faint movement of water. Then I noticed something floating far out, just beyond where the darkness swallowed detail. At first I thought it was driftwood, maybe debris, but it was moving against the tide, slowly, deliberately, coming closer instead of drifting away. I raised my phone light toward the water, the beam weak and shaking, barely reaching past a few feet. The shape disappeared beneath the surface. I told myself it was a dolphin. Maybe a large fish, maybe my imagination. I kept repeating that in my head, trying to steady my breathing. Then something brushed against my ankle. Soft, slow, lingering. Not seaweed, not a wave. Not a quick accidental touch. It felt like fingers wrapping gently around my leg. I jerked backward instantly, stumbling in the shallow water. My heart slamming against my ribs, I looked down, but the water was dark and empty. I stepped back toward dry sand, trying to calm down, telling myself it was nothing. Behind me I heard a wet dragging sound. Heavy, slow, scraping across soaked sand, I turned around. About 15 feet away, something was pulling itself out of the water. First I saw a hand, pale and swollen, skin wrinkled like it had soaked too long. The fingers dug into the sand and tightened, pulling a body forward, and another hand surfaced. Then a head rose from the black water. Long wet strands of hair hung over its face, water streaming down its neck. Its shoulders were narrow, its arms too long. Bending slightly in the wrong direction, it dragged its torso onto the beach. Ribs sharply visible under thin stretched skin. Its legs twisted awkwardly, as if the joints were loose inside. It did not stand. It crawled. Its stomach sliding across the sand, leaving a deep groove behind it. My legs would not move. My body felt locked in place. My throat dry and tight, it slowly lifted its head toward me. Its hair shifted just enough for me to see its face. Its eyes were completely white, no pupil, no color. Just blank pale surfaces reflecting faint light. Its mouth opened slowly, unnaturally wide. Water pouring out along with something dark and stringy. Its jaw stretched farther than it should have been able to. It made a low sound, not a scream, not a growl. More like air being forced through something broken and hollow. I stumbled backward, my heel sinking deep into soft sand. Suddenly, it jerked upright. Bones cracked loudly as its spine straightened. Its neck snapping into alignment, its arms hanging almost to its knees. Its head tilted sharply to one side. Then it started moving toward me. Not running, sliding, its feet barely lifting. Gliding across the sand without resistance. I turned and ran toward the boardwalk leading to the parking lot. Each step heavy, my lungs burning, the sand beneath me began shifting strangely. Small depressions forming around my feet, like something was moving underneath. Then hands burst out of the sand, pale, soaked hands grabbing at my ankles. My calves, my wrists, their grip was cold and slick. Tightening fast, I kicked violently, feeling fingers snap under my heel, hearing wet cracking sounds. But more hands kept pushing upward. Clawing through the sand, the beach around me seemed hollow, collapsing slightly with each movement. I ripped myself free and kept running, sand spraying behind me. When I reached the boardwalk, I glanced back. There were dozens of them now, emerging from the shoreline, from beneath the sand, from shallow water, all with the same elongated limbs, the same twisted posture, the same blank white eyes. They moved in jerking motions, stopping suddenly, tilting their heads, then rushing forward again. One lunged and grabbed the back of my shirt. Its nails tore through fabric and skin instantly. I felt sharp, burning pain across my back. I spun around and punched it with everything I had. Its jaw snapped sideways with a loud crack. But it did not fall. It leaned closer instead, its mouth stretching wider, skin tearing at the corners. Small shells and sand stuck between its broken teeth. Its breath smelled like rot and salt, and something long dead. I shoved it away and sprinted up the boardwalk. Behind me, I heard wood cracking, multiple bodies climbing onto it, their limbs striking the planks in uneven rhythm, fast and chaotic. I reached my car, my hands shaking so badly I dropped my keys once, my breath coming in short, broken gasps. As I unlocked the door, I felt fingers brush the back of my neck. Cold, wet, tightening slightly, I dove inside and slammed the door shut. One of them hit the window instantly, its face pressed against the glass, water running down over its pale skin. Its white eyes inches from mine. Another climbed onto the hood, its fingers denting the metal, leaving deep impressions. I started the engine and slammed the gas pedal. The tires spun in gravel before gripping, the car jerking forward violently. As I sped out of the parking lot, I looked in the rearview mirror. They were standing at the edge of the sand, perfectly still, all watching, not chasing, just waiting. The next morning I drove back in daylight. I do not know why. Maybe to prove to myself it was not real. The beach looked normal. Calm waves, bright sun, empty shoreline. But near where I had been standing, there were deep grooves in the sand. Long drag marks, leading from the water, and stopping exactly where my footprints had ended. Now I live miles inland, far from the coast. But some nights when everything is silent, I hear waves, soft, slow, folding over themselves. And sometimes when I am half asleep, I feel something cold wrap gently around my ankle. Not pulling hard, just holding, waiting for the tide to come back in. My name is Marcus Holley. I live in Ohio, and this happened 3 months ago when I rented a storage unit on the edge of town. I was moving out after a divorce, downsizing into a smaller apartment, so I needed a cheap place to keep furniture and boxes. The facility sat behind an old warehouse district. Long rows of metal doors, gravel ground. One small office at the front. I chose Unit 47, middle row. Nothing special about it. The first night, I moved my stuff in. Everything felt normal. The air smelled like dust and oil. The metal walls popped from temperature changes around 9 p.m. The manager locked the front gate and left. I stayed a little longer organizing boxes. That was when I heard the first sound. A slow dragging noise from inside the unit next to mine. It sounded heavy, like a mattress being pulled across concrete. I assumed someone else had laid access. But when I stepped outside, the entire row was empty, no cars. No people. I went back into my unit and shut the roll-up door halfway. A few minutes later, the dragging sound came again, closer this time, directly against the shared wall. Then 3 slow knocks, not random, intentional. I froze and stared at the metal wall. Metal bent inward slightly. With each knock I backed up. The wall bulged again. Harder this time, the screws along the panel started popping out one by. One. I grabbed my phone and walked outside to check the neighboring unit number, Unit 48. I looked at the lock. It was rusted shut, thick layer of dust across the handle. No sign it had been opened in years. Behind me I heard metal ripping. I turned. The shared wall between 47 and 48 tore open. From the inside, a jagged hole, large enough for a person. Something pushed through it first. I saw fingers, long and swollen. Skin stretched tight and glossy, like it had been underwater for days. Then a shoulder forced through the gap, dislocating with a wet crack. The head came last. Its jaw hung low, swinging loosely, teeth grinding against each other. Its eyes were open but unfocused, milky white. Its torso was too long. Ribs visible under thin skin. It fell onto my concrete floor and began straightening its limbs. Bones snapped loudly as they locked into place. It stood upright but slightly tilted, like its spine was not aligned. I couldn't move it. Turned its head toward me, felt pressure in my ears. Like being underwater, then it rushed forward, not running, sliding. Its feet barely lifted off the ground. I tried to get past it, but it grabbed my forearm. Its grip was crushing. I felt my wrist bones grind together. I screamed and hit it with a metal folding chair. The chair bent around. Its Beckett didn't react. Instead, it leaned closer, its mouth opened wider. Skin tearing at the corners, I could see deep into its throat. No tongue, just darkness. It bit into my shoulder knot. Like a normal bite, its teeth pierced through muscle and stayed there. It shook its head violently. I felt flesh. R.I.P. away. Hot blood ran down my chest. I shoved my thumb into its eye. The eye collapsed inward like soft fruit. Black fluid poured out. It released me and stumbled back. I ran toward the exit, but the roll-up door was already closing slowly. No motor sound, just lowering on its own. I dove under it, scraping my back on the metal edge. Outside, the entire row of storage units was vibrating, every metal door rattling at once. From inside multiple units, I heard dragging, scratching, something heavy slamming into walls. The gate at the front was still locked. I ran toward it, but halfway there I heard gravel crunching behind me. Turned, unit doors were opening one by one, not lifting upward, peeling outward, metal bending like paper from each dark opening. Something stepped out, same body shape, same twisted spine, same white eyes, at least 10 of them moving toward me without hurry, like they knew I had nowhere to go. One of them suddenly dropped to all fours and sprinted, its joints bending wrong with every step. It slammed into me before I could react. I hit the gravel hard. My vision blurred. It climbed on top of me. Its fingers dug into my stomach. I felt nails slide under my skin. It pulled. I felt warmth spill out across my sides. I couldn't breathe. More of them gathered around. One grabbed my leg and twisted my knee, bent sideways. The pain was blinding. Another pressed its hand against my chest. I felt ribs cracking under the pressure. They weren't rushing. They were taking their time, pulling pieces of me slowly, like they were studying how I came apart. I remember looking up at the night sky. No stars visible, just darkness. One leaned close to my face, its broken jaw brushed against my cheek. I felt its breath inside my mouth, cold and rotten. Then everything went black. Police reports say the security cameras glitched that night. Static from 8:52 p.m. until 3:17 a.m. when footage returned. My car was still parked. The gate was still locked. Unit 47 was intact. No hole in the wall, no damage, but there was blood on the gravel. A lot of blood and pieces of skin that matched my DNA. And never found the rest of me, but sometimes, according to the manager, tenants complain about knocking from inside the walls of their units. 3 slow knocks, then metal bending inward. My name is Aaron. I moved to a remote farmland in Colorado after buying an old farmhouse. The property was almost 40 minutes away from the nearest city, surrounded by endless open fields, an old wooden barn leaning slightly to one side, and a deep stone well behind the house. I lived there alone. The nearest neighbor was almost a mile away, and when night fell, the entire place disappeared into total darkness. No street lights, no passing cars, nothing but my single porch light glowing in the black. On my 3rd night in the house, I heard the first sound, a deep thumping. It came from beneath the floor, slow, heavy, deliberate, like someone pressing their fists upward against the wooden boards. At first, I told myself it was just an old house settling. Temperature changes, wood expanding, normal farmhouse noises. I forced myself to ignore it, and eventually I fell asleep. The next night, the sound came back. This time, it had a pattern, 3 heavy thumps, then 10 seconds of silence, then 3 more over and over. My chest tightened as I listened. I went into the kitchen and slowly knelt down, pressing my ear against the wooden floor. The sound was directly under me. Not from a basement, not from pipes, directly under the boards. The problem was this house had no crawl space. The foundation was solid concrete. I had checked the inspection report myself. Around 2 in the morning, my porch light suddenly shut off. I checked the app on my phone. The power was still on. The bulb was working. But outside was pitch black. I walked to the window and stared out into the field. In the distance, I saw the soil rising and sinking, like something massive was pushing up from underneath and then sliding back down. The ground looked like it was breathing. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The air was colder than it should have been. Unnaturally cold, and there were no insect sounds. No wind through the grass, just silence pressing against my ears. I walked toward the spot in the field where I saw the movement. The soil there was soft, damp, like it had been freshly dug. But there was no visible hole. Behind me, I heard deep breathing. Not human breathing, heavy, wet, uneven, like lungs filled with liquid. I turned around quickly. No one was there. But the barn door behind me slowly began to open on its own. The sound of old wood dragging against wood echoed across the empty field. I felt my legs weaken, but I forced myself to walk toward the barn. Inside there were old farming tools, rusted chains hanging from the beams, and a broken animal cage shoved into the corner. In the center of the barn floor was a long scratch mark, deep and violent, like something large had been dragged across the wood while chained. Then the floor beneath my feet cracked. Before I could move, a hand shot up through the boards and grabbed my ankle. The hand looked human, but the skin was pale and soaked. Slimy, the fingers too long, the nails cracked and sharp. I screamed and kicked backward as hard as I could. The grip loosened, and the hand slipped back down into the darkness. But my ankle tore open, skin ripping. Warm blood running down my foot, I crawled out of the barn in panic. Behind me, I heard the sound of soil breaking, like multiple bodies pushing upward at once. Across the field, patches of ground began to bulge, then split open. Pale white hands burst out of the earth. Dozens of them, all stretching in the same direction. Toward my house, I ran toward the porch, stumbling, bleeding. Hearing the wet gurgling sounds behind me, I slammed the front door shut and locked it. Immediately the thumping returned beneath the floor. Stronger now, shaking the entire house, the wooden boards vibrated under my feet. In the living room, the carpet began to rise in the center, forming a swelling mound as if something underneath was pushing upward. The carpet suddenly tore open. A face forced its way through. It had no eyes, just two deep hollow pits. Its mouth was open unnaturally wide, filled with soil and small stones grinding between broken, uneven teeth. It lunged upward, trying to bite my leg. Dirt and blood spilled from its mouth onto the floor. I grabbed a heavy iron pan from the kitchen and smashed it down onto its skull. The impact echoed like bone cracking, but it did not fully break. The face slowly withdrew back into the floor. Then I heard movement everywhere, under the boards, inside the walls, across the ceiling, scratching, crawling, shifting. In the bathroom mirror, I saw my reflection shaking in fear. But behind me in the reflection stood two pale bodies, tall, still watching. When I turned around, the bathroom was empty. Blood from my ankle dripped onto the floor. I watched in horror as the drops slowly slid across the wood by themselves, moving toward a thin crack between the boards, disappearing into it, as if something below was drinking it. Then I heard pounding from the basement door, violent pounding. I had never used the basement because the realtor told me it was permanently sealed. The pounding grew louder, the wood bent inward, screws popped loose. The entire frame began to split. With a final explosive crack, the basement door burst open. A blast of freezing air shot upward, and then they came. Dozens of pale bodies crawling up the staircase, their joints bending backward, their arms too long, their heads twitching violently. None of them had eyes, but every one of them turned directly toward me. I tried to run toward the back door, but a hand was already reaching through from the outside, Holding the handle, waiting, I screamed as loud as I could. The sound echoed across the empty fields. No neighbor came. No headlights appeared. The next morning, a nearby farmer called the police. He said the entire field looked disturbed, like dozens of holes had been dug and filled back in overnight. When officers entered the house, they said the floor felt soft, spongy, like something was still moving beneath it. They never found me, but people who pass that farmland at night say the soil still rises and sinks slowly, breathing, and every time someone tries to build a new foundation on that land, it cracks within 3 days, as if something underneath refuses to be buried again.